Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this week's Word Study. This week, we're going to be talking about the Sabbath. Hey, Alan's finally going to talk about the Shabbat. The Sabbath, properly pronounced Shabbat, is one of the best known and least understood of all Yahweh's commandments. People who do not observe Shabbat think of it as a day filled with great restrictions and discomfort, or as a day of prayer. But to those who do observe Shabbat, it's a precious gift from Elohim, a day of great joy, eagerly looked forward to throughout the week. Shabbat is a time when we can set aside all our concerns of the week and devote ourselves to a higher and much more important and worthy pursuit. Shabbat is the only ritual observance found in the Ten Commandments. It is primarily a day of rest and spiritual enrichment. The word Shabbat is spelled Shin, Beit, Tau. Comes from Strong's number H7676. First we have Shin. Picture of two front teeth, has to do with cutting and separating. Then we have Beit. Picture of a house. It has to do with family and with Yeshua. And then we have Tau. Picture of crossed sticks. It is Yahweh's mark. It represents a sign or a monument. So, Shabbat speaks of those who are separated from the world, Shin. Those who belong to Yeshua, who are in Yahweh's house and are his family, Beit. And it speaks of those who have Yahweh's mark and are eternally a monument in time, Tau. Now, although we do pray on Shabbat, it is not specifically a day of prayer. That is to say that prayer is not what distinguishes Shabbat from the rest of the week. Believers pray every day, 3 times a day or more. But to say that Shabbat is a day of prayer is no more accurate than saying that it's a day of feasting because we eat every day. However, on Shabbat, we eat more elaborately and in a more leisurely fashion. Today, in America, we take the 5-day work week so much for granted that we forget what a radical concept a day of rest was in ancient times. A weekly day of rest has no parallel in any other ancient civilization, other than with the Hebrews. In ancient times, leisure was for the wealthy and the ruling classes only, never for the serving or laboring classes. The very idea of rest each week was literally unimaginable in all other ancient cultures. The Greeks thought that Jews were lazy because they insisted on having a day off every 7th day. Shabbat involves 2 interrelated commandments. Number 1, to remember Shabbat. And number 2, to observe Shabbat. Exodus chapter 20, verse 8 tells us to remember the Sabbath day, to sanctify it. And in Exodus 20, verse 11, after the 4th commandment is first given, Yahweh explains, saying, "For 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and on the 7th day he rested. Therefore Yahweh Baruch blessed the Sabbath day and sanctified it." By resting on the 7th day and sanctifying it, we remember and acknowledge that Elohim is the creator of heaven and earth and all living things. And by the way, a lot of people still ask this question: which day of the week is the Sabbath? It's the seventh day of the week. Look at any calendar. That day, the seventh day, is Saturday. It's not Sunday. Now, we also emulate Yahweh's divine example by refraining from work on the seventh day, just as he did. Now, to look at those 2 points. Number one is to remember Shabbat. The word we see as remember is Zakar, and that is spelled Zayin Kaf Resh. Comes from Strong's number H2142. Zayin, picture of a plowing tool. It has to do with digging into the word. It represents spiritual man. It also talks about remembering Shabbat. Then we have Kaf, picture of an open palm. It has to do with bending and allowing. It has to do with taming and subduing the flesh. It has to do with the filling of the Ruach. Not the receiving of the indwelling Ruach, but the filling of the indwelling Ruach. And finally we have Resh, picture of a man's head. It has to do with headship and what your thoughts are on. So, to Zakar Shabbat, to remember Shabbat, is to spend time digging into his word, Zayin, to bend and allow his word to be your ultimate guide and measuring tool by taming and subduing your flesh and allowing the filling of the Ruach to happen, Kaf, and by placing all your thoughts on him, making Elohim your headship, Resh. In Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 15, while Moshe reiterates the 10 Commandments, he notes the second thing that we must remember on Shabbat, saying, quote, "Remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, Mitzrayim, and Yahweh, your Elohim, brought you forth from there with a mighty hand and with an outstretched arm. Therefore, Yahweh, your Elohim, commanded you to observe the Shabbat, to shamor the Shabbat day." The word we see as observe is shamor, and that word is spelled Shin Mem Resh. Comes from Strong's H8104. Shin, picture of 2 front teeth, has to do with cutting and separating. Mem, picture of water, also has to do with the blood of Yeshua and with the word, because we are washed by the word. And then again we have Resh, picture of a man's head, has to do with your headship and what your thoughts are on. So to shamor, to observe Shabbat, is to separate yourself by not being conformed to the ways of this world, Shin. To be growing in and washed by his word, Mem. And to be putting all your thoughts on him, making Elohim your headship, Resh. Shabbat frees us from all of our daily concerns, from all of our deadlines and schedules and commitments. On Shabbat, we are to be free of all these worldly concerns. Now, in my own personal opinion, there are some who turn Shabbat into a way of enacting works of the flesh, saying, you can't do this and you mustn't do that. And I find those kinds of attitudes rather upsetting. However, I won't get into any specifics about that. Don't ask me if it's okay to turn on a light switch or buy a quart of milk on Shabbat. It isn't for me to tell you what to do. I only tell you what his word says. The rest is up to you. If you feel the need to ask about such matters, ask Elohim and wait on his answer. Remember, Yeshua HaMashiach fulfilled the Torah. He didn't eliminate it. It is still beneficial to everyone in very powerful ways. Torah does not mean law, as most English Bibles tell you. A law is something designed to execute punishment on those who disobey. And that is not what Yahweh's Torah is. Torah means teaching. Think Abba's loving instructions to his children, which teach them how to block the destructive attempts of Satan and his demons in their lives. You know, personally, Shabbat, like I said before, it's a day to look forward to. A day to just divorce yourself from everything that's going on in all of your worldly activities for the week. Shut all that down, take a deep breath, and spend time pitching your tent with Elohim. Take a day off, really off, away from everything and anything that has to do with this world. And just focus all your day on the things of Elohim, the things of Yahweh's Malchut, his kingdom. Get in the Word. Watch these videos. Pray. Sing songs and praises to him. Make songs up off the top of your head. Just lift your hands up and sing to him. It doesn't have to rhyme. It doesn't have to make sense. Dance and sing to him. And that's our study for this week, my friends. As always, I hope and I pray that this has been a beracha and continues to be a beracha to you and yours. And Abba willing, I'll see you here next week. Until then, Shalom, my friends.
Now 2,000 years have gone by, it's another working day. Some would rather let it lie, but the question still remains.